So, March is Women's History Month, a time to honor fearless pioneers, innovators, and leaders who have paved the way for us. Because of their courage and determination, we stand on their shoulders, continuing the work of breaking barriers and creating opportunities for future generations. I'm your host, Teresa Palacios Smith, and today's Women Who Leads episode is all about the power of collaboration. There's a well known African proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, go together. This sentiment perfectly reflects today's conversation as we welcome our guest, Jessica Cook, who's the Franchise Development Manager at Home Team Inspection Service, Lena King, who is Orange County, California Sales Manager for My NHG. And we're going to find out more about what that means altogether in a few minutes. And Susie Wright, Senior Vice President of Business Operations at NAF Homes. These trailblazing women exemplify what it means to uplift, support, and drive change through partnership and collective leadership. So grab your cafecito. I hope you have it with you and join me to learn more about driving partnerships. So welcome everyone. I really am so happy to have you on the show.
Thank you for having us.
And
Thank
my
you.
first question, I'm going to start with Susie, is all about, I always like to start off because real estate is such a unique field, right? How did you get and started in your field? Because it kind of crosses with what we do. And how did you become so closely related to the real estate field and the industry?
Great. Well, thank you again for having me. My background, I started in actually retail sales. That was kind of my first career was working with the public, and I was in that for 13 years in retail management. And when I started having my children and having a family and growing my family, I realized I wanted to have a job and a career that offered me a little more flexibility with young children. So I got my real estate license and I worked for several builders here in Southeast Michigan and learn the whole ins and outs of real estate. And I found that, that was my passion. I loved helping people achieve their dream of homeownership. So I was thriving, doing great, and building relationships, helping builders sell homes. And then we hit our financial crisis in '08. And I had to kind of take a step back and say, okay, great. What am I going to do now in my career? So I took to looking online. And at that time, there was an online lender here in Detroit that was building a real estate referral network that I thought was quite interesting because it was a blend of both of my backgrounds. And I took on a role in helping them build their real estate referral network. And when I started, we had, I think, 4 agents in our network. I was there for a little over 7 years and I built it to about 28,000 real estate agents. But what it did is it allowed to use my background in relationship building on a nationwide basis. So I was able to build great partnerships with realtors, and then made a move in 2007 to build a referral network from the ground up. So that was exciting for me, but that's my story behind how I've gotten close to
I
real estate
love
and built
it.
my real estate knowledge.
And I have actually known you when you transitioned from your first role, right, into
Yes.
your newest role. But I will tell you, the one thing that inspires me, because a lot of the networks that we work with or the roles or partnerships that we have, sometimes they don't have the real estate background like you do. I think that's really important if you've sold real estate and have actually done it, because you can really relate to the agents and the work that they do, which is such a difficult job. A lot of people think it's so easy, but it really is so time consuming. Lena, how about you?
Well, for me, I started in the title insurance industry. So it helps me now because I can speak realtor, with my clients. But I did that for 10 years and then took 12 years off to raise my daughters and then came back into this product, selling this product, natural hazard disclosures. And I've been doing that for about 10 years now, and I love it.
I love that this role also, the ones that we touch also really allow you to also leave and then come back. I think that's really important in the real
Yeah.
estate world that we're able to do that. How about you, Jessica? You have a different spin on what you do, but you touch our industry so very much. And the most important piece of helping our customers in the inspection process. And so you kind of work on that side and work very closely with our team, Nina Fabry and Chris Sears, as well as the team there. Tell us a bit more about how you got into your role.
Sure. So my story is a little unique because our company was started by my father. But it is the exact opposite of probably what you would expect because I was never expected or even it wasn't really even an option. It was never offered for me to be involved in the family company. A very, very long kind of story, but I did go to school. Originally, I went in for pre-law, decided it was not for me. And so I switched to communications. And that's how I ended up in sales originally. So sales is all I have ever done. My dad is one of those, you don't get to work for the family company unless you've earned it elsewhere first. So, so
Mhm.
I worked in sales many years, and turns out that I really enjoy working with people. I really connect with people. I feel on a deeper level than some people are willing to. A lot of people are stuck at the weather, and I would rather know the person and know how to help them fit their needs. So I was actually in sales for many years across many industries, and then I took a break, about 10 years to stay home with our kids. We had four kids under four at one point, you know. So didn't really make sense
One
for me to
right
work for
after
a
the
while.
other. Wow.
Yes, yeah, yep. So, yep, four under four, and all the craziness that goes along with that. And
Oh,
actually, the way that I got into home team was actually because I was actually staying at home at the time. I was not working, and I was my husband. Being that he works at the family company, he's our director of business development now. He was not at the time. I was just his plus one at an event that our president Adam came to, and he said he heard me talking to people about the home inspection industry and the issues in the industry and how we are trying to change it and all of that. And he said, "Oh my goodness, she knows a lot about our industry." And he actually approached me and said, "Hey, have you ever thought about working for Home Team?" And there is a point in getting to all of this, not trying to take too much time. Uh, but the problem was, he was very forward thinking. That's not the problem. He was very forward thinking. He saw that I could do this and that, and all of the things. There was someone else in the company at the time who didn't think so because he was not happy with the fact that I had been home for 10 years and he to be honest, had this position at a different company, and he didn't want someone to come in who had been a stay-at-home mom for 10 years and showed that I could do that. And he had actually tried to do it at our company and was not successful. So I think that it was an embarrassment thing. So I had to actually fight for about 6 months before I was actually able to work within this company because I fought tooth and nail about how this long story short, I was paid less than I should have been and all kinds of things. And then when I would bring that up, I was told, well, we need to see if you can do it first before you could do, before we pay you. I'm like, that's not
that
how
that
this works. I've been in sales my entire life. And in this specific role, because I know the company and I know what has been paid, how am I making less than my assistant at the moment? What is
wow.
going on here? And for months. And so I don't want to get into so much of it, but definitely was not easy to be a part of this business. And I take a lot of pride in what I do because I really love our franchisees. I really love them. I believe in what we're doing. And I could never leave because I care about making this the best franchisor that we can be for those franchisees, some of which have been with us for decades at this point.
Well, I
So
love
it's a
that you
little bit about my
challenge.
story.
I love that you challenge that because a lot of us don't have the courage to do that. I know I didn't in many of the roles that I have. And Jessica, your background mirrors mine very closely because that's my degree was in communication, and all I ever have done is sales. I always said that I wasn't. I always felt like I wasn't very good at sales. So, but other people say no, that's not true. So I totally get it. Now, each one of you has such, and I'm going to specifically talk to Lena and to Susie about this because your role really handle is part of the real estate transaction. So, what is the most effective way that you collaborate with real estate agents to make sure that the process is smooth for both the home buyer and the sellers, if that's kind of applicable to you.
Well, I'll go first real quick. I provide them with information that their buyer can make an informed decision, and I protect them from a lawsuit. So it's a niche product. It's required by law here in California, although we can do a natural hazard disclosure report on any property in the entire United States. So, and we were doing this before it became a law 20 something years ago. So that is what I get to offer them. And I'm also available to help them talk with their clients to make an informed decision and put them in front of the correct professional if necessary.
Now, do you work with the seller or with the buyer or both?
I work with both. I work
Okay.
with both. It's,
And so,
yes, ideally it's the listing agent.
okay.
But sometimes it's put on escrow, sometimes it's put on the transaction coordinators. And I love it when my agents let me speak with the actual new homeowner. So to help them, make an informed decision. So,
Perfect.
mhm,
Very different because in Georgia we don't have that. So again, love hearing that side of the business.
mhm.
Susie, I know that yours is also very very important because you've developed those relationships with the agents. It can't be just someone that's brand new to the business. You really look for realtors to help you through the process. Explain that.
Exactly. So in my world, with NAP Homes, we're a referral network. So we are sending pre-qualified buyers to our real estate partners nationwide. So I have a loan officer that's trusting me with their client to get it to an agent where the communication needs to be in sync with one another to help that client achieve their dream of homeownership. So for me, communication is key. I have spent my entire career building these strong partnerships and staying in touch with our realtor partners. Knowing the markets, I think that's so important because I do that by phone calls. I'm constantly staying in touch with our partners and reaching out to them. Anything happening in the industry, anything I need to know, I'm always, who are my people I'm going to call? But also industry conferences. I try to attend almost every industry conference out there because I think having that face-to-face interaction and building, I call them relationships, right? But in a lot of cases, they're friendships that you have. And when you have that, it makes those sometimes tough calls you have to have or to dig deeper on something or find out, what they know about something. It makes it easier. You're always a phone call away. You can pick it up. You can find out what you need to find out. It makes those tough calls easier and have that transparency. But I think it's the glue. I always say like we're that liaison that keeps everything on the track for that client on their journey by keeping everyone communicating. So for me, it's the communication. It has to be there.
And one of the things that we love because you partner with our network, which is the Berkshire Hathaway Home Services and the Home Services America network of our agents, and also through our relocation directors, which kind of manage the process in our space. So I love that because there's a great communication skill that's required on all ends, right? And there's also accountability, which is really important
Absolutely.
with the role that you have. And the inspection process, I know that you work with that, Jessica, and that's probably the number one thing I always, when I was a realtor, recommended everyone do. Not everyone gets an inspection, but you also touch that process as well through the work that you do.
I do. So I have a little bit of a different take on the home inspection industry than a lot of the rest of the industry, given that we use a very different model. And the reason that we do that is because we want to care for those real estate agents and the client better. This industry is it's actually a very young industry. It's actually only about 45 years old. We've been in
Wow.
it for 35 and we've been franchising for 32. So we've been here since the very beginning. But unfortunately, because it's a very young and underdeveloped industry, there are a lot of inconsistencies that can lead to the client and the real estate agent not having the best experience. And so that's, we're here to change that. So what I am doing, I am obviously here in the sales department to develop home team. I'm looking for a very different individual than who you would typically see in the home inspection industry. And so my job is to connect with these people and make sure that they're going to be the right fit for our model, which is very unique. The average owner operator, home inspectors, 50 to 55-year-old male former tradesmen, whereas ours is typically not from that same background, usually somebody coming from corporate America because we are building an asset. So this is somebody who is not just an inspector working for himself. They own the company who employs teams of inspectors and all that. So what I'm doing is I'm connecting with people. And I love, Teresa, when you said that our stories kind of mirror, and then you were talking about how you don't, you wouldn't say, oh, I'm best at sales in your perspective. But I love that you said that, because I never feel like I do sales a day in my life. Because the first thing that I say is, hey, tell me about yourself. What are your goals? What are you trying to achieve? Why are you looking into business ownership? And then connect with them on the things that really matter to them and say, hey, this is not going to be the right model for you. If you have an extreme anxiety about talking to new people, you're not going to connect with agents very well, right? So I am working with people every day, helping them to, make this decision on whether or not business ownership is even for them, and what business ownership looks like, and what, if they can achieve their goals in this industry. And some of us talking to women who are, this is a male dominated industry. We have women owners who are absolutely crushing it. Our rookie of the year this last year was Amanda Yumi Yamagachi, and she is amazing. She's in Miami, and she was actually an E2 visa candidate. So she actually moved to America to start a franchise, knew nobody, and was rookie of the year. And we have many other female owners that fit that category as well, that are dominating in this industry. So I work with people in a lot of different capacities, because it's a little unique and outside of just my department, given that
I
it's a
love
family
that.
company.
I love that. I love that you were able to kind of make sure you have the right person in place to be successful in your business. And here's my pivoting to, right now we're all going through changes in our industry, as you all know. So tell me, how have you been able to adapt? What's happened to serve your clients better? Lena, I'll start with you.
Okay, yeah. Well, for me right now, fires have been just a huge
Wow.
worry here in California. And I provide my agents with a tool that they can get this information before they receive their NHD report. And you can simply just look to see if your property's in a flood zone or a fire zone. And you can, just let your clients know, okay, well, you like this property, or you can tell the seller, like, were you aware that you're in a fire zone? Because sometimes they don't know. So giving them this information ahead of time saves a lot of headaches down the road.
I didn't even know there was such a thing as a fire zone, honestly. So
You have
we
floods where you are,
that's right.
honey.
We have flood zones here in Georgia, but fire
Yeah.
zones, that's a new one for me.
Yeah.
Very
Every state
so
has their
true.
own
Yeah.
hazards. Yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely.
Mhm.
The tornado alleys and all that stuff as
Florida.
well,
Yeah.
right? How about you, Susie?
So, wow, our industry has been hit with a lot of changes in the last 5 years. So, for me, I look back and it started with, the effects of COVID and the impact that put by the restrictions it put on all of us. Our rate increases, but most recently our settlement changes, and I think that affected all of us. So, for me, it was learning again everything ahead of time to be prepared. I mean, I remember the first day that call came in, right? And we all saw online all the changes that this was going to have on all of us. And I started from that day just learning everything I could about how it was going to impact my world, because I needed to be the expert in that so that I could educate the loan officers that are referring the business and our clients, because at the end of the day, they needed to have a clear understanding. We were all close to it because we were living in day to day and in it. So for me, I think when challenges are, we face challenges, you got to educate yourself. You got to be in the weeds. You got to be figuring out, and how is this going to impact not only me, but everyone else that I work with? What's the downstream impact of what's happening? So it really helped me by just, again, go back to those relationships and those phone calls. I was calling everyone, learning everything I needed to. And then myself hosting webinars with our loan officers and our leadership team to help them prepared on the lending side, so that we could help that client that was hearing tidbits of it, and a little scared and skeptical of how it was going to impact them, have that clear understanding. So that was a smooth transaction, beginning to end. So I think we're all still learning. We have changes we're being faced with every day, but I
It,
think just educating yourself is what's key. And I think sometimes people look at challenges as being fearful of it, and I think you got to embrace it. You've got to figure out how you're going to get through it, and you got to be able to tackle it head on so that you can be the expert in it.
well, change is always constant for sure. And the
It
best
sure
way to
is.
is to hit it on and make sure that you're able to adapt. I always say you got to be resilient and adaptive. Lena or Jessica, any additional comments on that as well?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely can speak to this. Our entire business is trying to approach things differently because, I just mentioned that there's a lot of inconsistencies in this industry. The reason that Home Team originally started was because of the need for change. So my dad started this business when he was actually 23 years old. So he was a baby himself, just wanting to be in home inspections. His dad, my grandpa, is actually the first generation of our family to graduate high school. So,
Wow.
he just thought he was going to be a tradesman, just like the rest of our family. And when he decided that he wanted to be a business owner, he didn't really know what he was looking for, but he decided home inspections is where he wanted to go. And when he entered that industry is when he realized that there were a lot of inconsistencies and things that needed to be changed. So that's part of why we use a team. We use a team because it allows us to have efficiency that you can't do with one person. When you have efficiency, you have greater availability. When you have greater availability, you now have a unique differentiator that nobody else has. One guy can't just choose to do it faster. So that's why we use a team. Also, that's why we're looking for a different owner because we don't want somebody who just wants to be a home inspector and not grow something beyond themselves. Because if you don't grow beyond yourselves, you're not going to be able to have the availability for your real estate agents who need you, who have a 10-day contingency period. Average home inspectors booked 8 to 10 days out. And you can't just choose to be more available if you're only one guy. So our entire industry, or at least our business model, is exactly because of the need for change. So I love that subject.
I think it's so true. And I love the fact that you look at scaling because in order for any business to succeed, you do have to scale, right? But you also have to
Mhm.
have the right people to do the work that's involved. And I love, we're very proud to partner with Home Team for that reason, from the home services side and from Berkshire Hathaway Home Services as well. Now, here's a question on AI because digital platforms have emerged. You've got automation that's now, running most of our business. How is that shaping your own industry? And also, how can our realtors and our real estate agents that are with us leverage the innovations that you've implemented to better serve their own clients? I'll start with you, Jessica.
Yeah, so as far as technology, AI, again, this is something that is, not it's not very well developed in our industry. We created the very first inspection software in the industry 20 years ago. And of course, that was the first time it had ever been, created. So there was a lot of innovation there. Now, of course, we've continued to update that through time. And one of those things that we're running into is AI. There are people that are, hit or miss as far as their opinions on whether they like it, whether they don't. However, it is a reality. And if we don't address it, we're going to be behind. So currently we are rewriting our software and we are, again, redoing this inspection writer software. I'm sorry, the report writer software. And there are some aspects to AI. I can't talk too much about it because we're releasing it here in the next couple months. But only for the sake of efficiency. You never want to replace somebody. You never want to replace a human verifying that this information is true because, the AI doesn't have the reasoning power that we have. But absolutely, if you could look at something and get the information quicker so you could make that determination as to, is this what I'm looking at? It could be a very useful tool. So what I can say is that is something that we are looking into a lot, but I can't talk too much about it
Well, I can't
at the
wait to
moment.
hear about once it's released. Let us know. Let me know for sure so we
Absolutely.
can
I
promote
can
it.
I can say real quickly, we do have an app for real estate agents, and it does actually enter that as well. So a lot of home inspectors don't have an app. We have that app for real estate agents so they can book with us. If it's 11 o'clock at night, you could book with us for tomorrow at noon and have that report in your hand before the end of the day tomorrow.
I
Some of
love that.
those, yeah, and the connections that you make, and some of those are AI. When you get on there and it says, "Hey, how can I help you?" That's an AI bot.
Yes,
And so some of those are very helpful, can get you those answers quicker
I
than a
love
human
it.
could.
Lena, how about you?
Well, please, please do not ask AI if you're in a flood or a fire zone or
Don't do
in
that.
expansive soils. Please come to your trusted professional, your trusted information. Don't go to the dark web. Use our app, myhascheck.com.
Love it. So you have your own app that helps agents and, it's easy to maneuver. Fantastic.
It
Susie, how about
is. It's
you?
very easy. Mhm.
Yeah, well, for us, it's a people business, but I know that the impact of AI is in our world and it's here and it's going to only continue to grow. So for our company, we're using AI to just, create efficiencies internally for our teams and improve our process. For me personally, I'm learning everything I can possibly learn about it. And I think we're still just in the early stages, but we're starting internally. Like, how do we use it to improve our day to day? To, less is more for our teams to focus their attention in other places that they need to. So again, I think for all of us, it's just learning as much as we possibly can so that we can stay on top of it and continue to grow with it as well as it evolves in our industry. So
Well, one of the things that it has definitely changed is the ability for you to really do the job of working with individuals to help them in the process of whatever
exactly.
your role is. It certainly has helped me. And I just have to do a real quick shameless plug. Alan Dalton, a lot of people know who he is in the
Yeah.
industry, is writing a book called Agent to AI Gent. So agent. So it's a really great book, and he has actually asked me to do one chapter in it. Well, I'm excited about that. So it'll be on how we use it in our own resources to be able to help our customers more effectively. So again, not replacing it because the human touch and connection and the ability to understand challenges is something that only people can do, right? So anyway, I love that. How about personal? Let's talk about personal challenges. We're going to go through personal things and find out a little bit about what has happened to you. You mentioned a little bit, Jessica, about your impact or significant challenges at the very onset of our conversation as financial, not getting or earning the same amount that your cohorts were earning. How's that impacted you, and how have you overcome those challenges? And I want to start with you, and then Susie, and then Lena.
Sure. So this is, it's one of those things, especially because it's a family company. I do want to say, my dad didn't have any direct, involvement, or he doesn't have any direct involvement with me in my day to day. So these are people, that have been put in place over many years. Um, I have found that especially because it is a male-dominated industry, not so much the sales, but the home inspection side of things, seeing a woman come in and start talking about home inspections is not something that a lot of the industry is used to. It has been something that has worked very well for a lot of our female owners who are working with real estate agents who a lot of times are female and they're really, they find it really great to work with an owner. So it has nothing to do with not being able to be successful or anything. It's just how the industry has been up to this point. And unfortunately, it hasn't been much different for myself. Part of the reason that I knew what I should have been paid prior is because my husband actually filled this role for several years. So I knew exactly what he was making, and I knew exactly what I was not making at the time, though I was doing the entire role because this person who was keeping me out of the business ended up being let go. He's no longer at the company anymore. My husband needed to step into that role, so I was now thrown into this role where they now needed me. And unfortunately, because they needed me, I was like, well, hey, I'm not doing this for free anymore. I've been fighting and fighting and fighting, and now, enough is enough. So the way that that affected me was in a lot of different ways. And I wish I could say that it was only professional, but it's just not true. When you are trying to fight for what you believe is just and you feel like it's a personal injustice, that really affected me in my personal life as well. And, my husband and I love being able to say that this actually really brought us together because he didn't realize even how pervasive this problem was. And he ultimately helped to make sure that this was rectified, and fight for me. But he had to start stepping in to help fight for me because me fighting on my own wasn't quite enough at the time. I wish I could say it was, but it wasn't. So a lot of the times, when I'm talking to, clients that are looking to not only start a business, but then also get into this industry, I work with females. I also work with people from all kinds of different backgrounds, and I'm asked all the time, is this something that I can do? Is this a good old boys club that I'm not going to be able to break into? And I love being able to say, if nothing else, that what I went through, I can tell them, hey, you can be a female in a male-dominated industry and do amazing things, but you do have to think a little bit differently. You can't do things the way they've always been done before and be a female doing it. You need to also innovate in your own ways and bring forth, all of the beauty that you bring to the industry. Being involved, I will say, success is the best revenge, right? Stepping into this
Yes.
role, I have to say it felt real good when our franchisees started speaking up and saying, I'm so glad Jess is a part of this. I'm so glad to talk to somebody who cares about me as an individual. And, a lot of our clients coming in now, we're getting really great clients because I'm willing to have a conversation about their personal life when a lot of people in this role aren't.
Mhm.
I talk every day to people, like there's a man, many examples, but a lot of people are worried about their kids with how the world is going. They're like, well, I don't know if I'll ever need to, but if I could have a way to employ my children so that I know they would be taken care of if need be. I talk to a lot of parents. That's a very personal thing. And I think that as a woman, I have a unique ability to connect with people that's just a little bit different than who has been in this position prior. So
I
I hope that
so
answers your
agree with you.
question.
No, I so agree with you. And Lori, who is one of our guests in the past, Lori Lane, who's with BHHS, said that was her biggest thing. Success is the biggest, is the best revenge, right? Because you prove yourself and you say, okay, look at what you were missing, or look how I'm able to impact in a different way, still using the tools you've taught me, but bringing in the sensitivity I think that women have that really help respond with others as well. How about you, Lena?
Well, for me, it's different because my product is not regulated by the Department of Insurance. So we have nobody policing our product. So I have competitors out there providing this information to real estate agents out of their garage or surfing the web and getting old information that's not guaranteed. So for me to let them know that, who you do business with matters, and to do a little investigation to qualify your NHD company, because it actually says that the realtor needs to make a good faith effort in selecting an NHD company. So, it can't be just, someone that came to your office and brought you cookies. It's deeper than that. It's really
So
a
you're
lot.
challenged more with
Yes,
the opportunities that other bring that don't really provide the reputation that
absolutely.
y'all have and the work that you do.
Correct.
Very interesting. How about you, Susie? I know you and I've had many of night conversations about challenges. So,
Yeah, so I can actually relate to a lot of what Jessica just said. So for me personally, it was, growing my career as a woman aspiring to move up in leadership, which wasn't easy. I worked at companies where, women were viewed as being emotional and not having a seat at the table and not being able to use their voice, which is sad because we have so much to contribute. And sometimes when you're kind of put and labeled as that, it puts you in a place where you stop using your voice. And it's mostly just out of fear, right? You've got this kind of like this overlaying thought of like, oh my God, I'm afraid to speak up because they're going to think of it in a different view than how it's meant to be. And you have so much to share, and it can be really sad. So, for me, I overcame that. I made a move to a company where women are embraced, where women have a seat at the table, where I do have a voice, and and it's heard. I can't tell you my meetings I've sat in where men in our company have like actually reached out and say like, well, Susie, what do you think? Or what are your thoughts on that? And, so I've gone from having a position where I didn't have a voice to now having a position where I do have a voice. And for me personally, it has helped me grow tremendously. And it's helped me contribute to everything that I have and to being a great leader and to building a great business that I've done. So I'm really proud of that. And again, you go back to that revenge is the best success, because I look at that. Like, I feel like I was kind of stifled for so long that when I got the chance to really show that I could do this, and I put it kind of in perspective of like your confidence, right? Your confidence is pushed down and pushed down. And then when you have that chance to kind of flourish and be who you are, great things can happen. So
it's like
I'm
a
proud of
bright,
the move I made and being able to have that voice.
yeah,
Exactly.
like a bright light bulb all
Mhm.
of a sudden turns on. You're
Hmm.
like, wow, they listen to me, right? And see
Exactly.
what has happened.
And
All of you mentioned this, and I just want to take note because all of, even I include myself into it, without men that were actually helped us and sponsored us, right? I wasn't able to get where I was, and I know you mentioned that too, Jessica. So it's important to have sponsors that really kind of help you advance and believe in you. I think that's a big part of what's important when it's talking, especially in a male dominant industry, like many
and
of us are in. So,
Teresa, could I say something real quick?
sure.
Just
Mhm.
real quick, because I know we want to move on. Um, Now, the culture of home team is very different, and I'm really excited to be able to say that because of what had happened, I now have a voice much better than I had prior because, it all works out in the end, right?
Hmm.
Others were able to see what was happening. And now, my brother is now our VP. And my husband is our director of business development, and we have many other people that work with us as well. But the difference is those individuals that were causing those issues, they're not here anymore. And now the two of them and me, we call it a three-legged stool. Between the three of us, we've changed the culture in home team to make sure that this doesn't ever happen again to somebody else. And I'm really thankful that, like you said, having sponsors, my husband and my brother, both of them are so incredibly helpful because they listen, because they heard me and they heard what I was saying and they helped me to change that. So
I
they
love
are a
that.
big part of this, not just myself. It's kind of been a joint effort.
And so true. I think that's really important to acknowledge, right? That now you are able to also, and one thing you mentioned that all of us know is so true. The bad apples always end up leaving
Mhm.
because they are bad apples, right? And they are don't know always know what they're doing, right? And they want to make you keep you down. So I love that. How
Mhm.
about mentors? Because I know each of you really want to talk at Women's History Month. If there's someone who has been a pivotal part of your journey into leadership, tell me a little bit about who they are and what shaped or guided you with their advice or mentorship. I'll start with you, Lena.
Well, for me, I'd have to say it's Eric Spitz, the owner of our company, because I hadn't worked for 12 years. So to get back into this industry and I had no more relationships because I moved to a different county. So all my title relationships, I couldn't tap into those again. So I had to start from scratch. And he really did just give me a shot. And he helped me learn about a product that I had no idea that wasn't even available back when I was selling title. So he really did help me along the way. That's for sure.
And he's a great person. Love Eric. So we want to give him a big shout out because he's
Yeah.
always a constant partner. Anytime I attend any events, I always feel his support for sure. How
Mhm.
about you, Susie?
Okay, well, so I've been fortunate in my career to have, work with a lot of very intelligent and thoughtful leaders that I've learned a lot. Whether my experience was positive or negative, I've learned from a lot of my past leaders. But currently, I am proud and excited because I work for three very inspirational mentors and leaderships and leaders in our company, with Pat B and Rick Arviello, who are co-CEOs, and then Christy Bunce, who is the president of our company and my direct leader. But I'll start with Patty, and Patty's a powerhouse, right? She is emotional. She speaks from the heart. I relate so much to Patty. And from the first time I saw her speak at a NAREP conference, I was in awe of her. And I think one of the things that just stands up to anyone that has seen Patty speak is taking it back to, like, she's so genuine and she tells it like it is, but her story is moving and how she's fought through challenges and now has created this amazing company that her and Rick have created together. But what Patty does is she loves to see other people succeed. And she'll help you. And her and I, when we connected, is she saw that, she knew what I had been going through and she wanted nothing but to see me succeed and just helped pave the way for where I am today. And I'd be amiss if I didn't talk about Rick because Rick is such an amazing businessman and his vision and his strategy and forward thinking has helped me build the business and the company I have today. And then I go to Christy because Christy is she's a straight shooter. And the combination of the three of them has made New American Funding and NAF what it is today. But, Christy shoots straight from the hip and she tells you how it is, and she allows you to really see things sometimes for what they are. She has a lot of people that report up to her in the company, but she has her eye on everything all the time. And she's always there when you need her. So I think for me, their confidence and their support has allowed me to kind of manage change and help me build a successful business, and all that while growing myself internally because I look up to them. And if there's one thing Patty always says, it's always like find that person that you want to mirror, right? And always keep having that person that you want to strive to be. And that's something I've done. And I've done that with all the leaders that I've reported to, but I'm always looking for that other person to kind of continue growing myself as well.
I love that. And I do absolutely agree with you with Susie and Rick. And now I don't know Christine very well, but I know that they are just spot on in
Yeah.
leadership and what they do, and they complement each other so beautifully.
Mhm.
All right, Jessica, how about you?
Sure. I would say that I have a number of mentors, but some of them are people that I haven't met. Like some of them are from books. One of my favorite books, which actually was an influence from my dad, it's kind of like a family favorite book, How to Win Friends and Influence People by Dale Carnegie.
Mhm.
Part of that, it even goes into parenting. Like, it even talks about, a story about a man talking about his son. So, for me, reading these books, I do a lot of audiobooks, with my kids in the car and things like that. Learning how to interact with people is such a lost art in a lot of ways. So sometimes, I would tell you, I have mentors that I don't even know their names because when I meet someone that I connect with and I recognize something unique, I take note of that. And I remember how that person makes me feel, and I really think about why was that so impactful to me, and then I try to use that in my own life because life is short. We're not here forever, and it's almost sickening for me to stay just at this let's talk about the weather, level that a lot of people do. So I feel like I have mentors every day that are different people because I connect with somebody and I think, you know what, that was so special to me. I want to implement that when I'm talking to my clients. I want them to know that when I am hearing them tell me their story, I'm not just taking notes and not listening. To me, this is deeply personal. It's important. It's important to you is important for me. So I reiterate the things that I heard them say. Some of those are things I read from that book, and then and there are many others like it. My dad, taught us hard work and self-discipline. He's big about that. He's not a military guy, but he is a very much military-minded type personality. He taught me self-discipline. My mom is one of the most loving, giving, nurturing people that I've ever known. She has been a stay-at-home mom my entire life. And I'll tell you, she inspires me too, because she is one of the people that taught me that there is no one way. My mom was called to a life of being a stay-at-home mom, and now she's a grandma. And when I need help, when anyone in the family needs help with grandkids or whatever, she's
She's
there,
there.
but it
Yeah.
wasn't my
Love that.
call.
Mhm.
And I did it for a certain amount of time. I'm very thankful for 10 years. I was able to stay home with my babies, but I was called to this. And
Yeah.
one of the things that I love is that there is no judgment about that. The
That
fact that I
is
did
the
something
best.
different than her, it's okay. Yeah. And so there's a
Yes.
lot of mentors, but like
I love
pieces
that you
from all
mentioned
over.
your mom and your dad, and certainly I totally agree with you because I think sometimes women that work get very judgmental, women that don't get very judgmental, and I've always been one of those as well. That why? I mean, either one, it's an important and critical piece and part of who we are. So I love that. Lena, how about you?
Yes, same for me. I'm actually first generation here from Cuba. I was born in Cuba. I came when I was a year old. And, family, I want to be like Jessica's mom. I want to be that nurturer, with my grandkids and, my daughters, and I want to be there. And I have that flexibility with this job. And I love that.
Well, you know what? It's funny because you are that for sure, Lena. I've known you and you are very nurturing, and certainly I can see that for sure. The I did want to say, Jessica, by my bedside table, I'm rereading that book. So How to Win Friends and Influence People because it's just a great It is a great
I
book.
literally, that was not
Yes,
even, that was an accident. I just happened to
it's by my
shameless
bedside
plug.
table. I'm rereading it because I thought, you know what, this is a good one that
Mhm.
you should just
Good one.
reread every, couple years. So, in any
Yeah,
case,
I
love
agree.
it. All right. If you could give advice to your younger self, knowing what you know today, what would that advice be, Susie?
Have the courage to speak up. I think so many of us, when we're younger, we're faced with many challenges, but we're always afraid to speak up. So I think just knowing that, like, don't settle for status quo. Like, always make sure that you're hitting things head on. I think sometimes when you're dealing with tough and uncomfortable situations, you look at two choices, either hitting them head on or kind of being a victim to it, right? And I think for me, I learned over the years as I was growing in my career and in my personal life, I had a lot of obstacles thrown my way, but I always looked at them as a challenge and a way to push through it. So I think a lot of people are just need that guidance, and just using their voice. Like, don't be afraid. And it is a scary thing sometimes. You're like, oh, do I say something? Do I not say something? How am I going to be thought of? But don't settle for status quo. Keep fighting through it and pushing through.
I love that. Jessica, how about you?
I'll tell you, I had tough teenage years and younger years because I did not really have a whole lot of direction. I kind of mentioned at the beginning, me being a part of the family company was not offered. That was never something that was even questioned whether or not I wanted to be a part of home team. So my brother was, it was, hey, if you want to be involved, we've got this family company, we'd love to have you, kind of thing. I didn't have that. So I didn't really know what I wanted. But the biggest thing that I would say is consistent, if I could pick one thing, is I wish I didn't care so much about what other people thought about me. Because the reality is, and I read this the other day and it kind of changed my view on so many things. I heard this the other day and I loved it. It said, we are the main character of our own stories and everybody else is just an extra.
Mhm.
So I wish I could tell myself, hey, don't be bothered so much about what somebody thinks about you because they're not thinking about you every day and your mistakes. They're thinking about their own day and their own mistakes. And they're not thinking about that, you put your foot in your mouth at the moment they might have, and then they walked away and they stopped thinking about it. So I wish that I had really understood that because I was the same way. There was a lot of things I didn't say, and there was a lot of fear and just anxiety and, not being willing to stand up for myself, being too passive. Those are all results of being worried about what the perception would be. Heaven forbid I show emotion,
I wish
just,
every
Mhm.
person, like every kid, would see that. Don't be afraid to be yourself, right? And to, not care about what anybody else thinks. Do your own thing. I love that whole philosophy because I think in the Latino culture, Lena, correct me if I'm wrong, we're always worried about what others are thinking, right?
Yeah.
What is our parents thinking? What's our family thinking? Oh my God, you can't do that because,
Mhm.
that's not the norm. So how
Mhm.
about you, Lena?
Yeah.
Oh
Growing in,
gosh.
you
Yes.
know, that Latino culture and,
Oh my gosh, can I just tell you, being Cuban and being raised by Cuban parents, in a different country, they were still raising me like I was, in Cuba. And, it's all about just get married and have babies. Well, I did that, got married at 19 and had three beautiful daughters, and then got a divorce and had to just really kick and scream to get my girls all college educated. They're all married. I'm just so happy, and it can happen, if you're a single mom too.
I,
So
I I think that's
Mm.
great. So the advice you'd give your younger self is
just to be a little bit kinder to myself, and it's okay, and just drown out those opinions and just keep going.
beautiful, beautiful. All right. We're almost out of time, so I'm going to end always with inspiration. I love to hear, and obviously Jessica heard one of your books, but what is a great book, quote, piece of advice that has had a profound impact on you in your career, your life that you would like to share with our audience? Lena, I'll start with you.
Okay, I had to write it down.
That's fine.
Leaders become great not because of their power, but their ability to empower others.
Beautiful.
Mhm.
Beautiful. Love that. How
Yeah.
about you, Jessica?
It's a quote, and I believe it's from just unknown source. But it said it was basically, it said it's more, or success is more attitude than aptitude. Another one that I really love, and it may seem like it doesn't go with it, but it actually does come up quite a bit in my daily life. I believe it was Einstein that said, if you judge a fish by their ability to climb a tree, they'll live their whole lives thinking they're stupid. And for me, that was huge because I said, I was that teenager that had, was had a lot of confusion and didn't have direction and things like that. It was not until I was an adult that I was diagnosed with autism and I have dyslexia. And we did not know those things. And so I was not a straight A student. And, it's actually been proven that a lot of people that end up being entrepreneurs are neurodivergent. They think differently than the average person. So looking at me as a teenager, I was a teen mom, and I had a lot of things stacked against me. I don't think anyone was expecting anything from me, which is why nobody was saying, "Hey, do you want to be a part of the family company?" Because I had issues spelling. People just don't know because now everything has autocorrect. But the reason that means so much to me is I'm talking to people every day who are talking about wanting to start a business. And that comes up a lot. A lot of these people, as I'm talking to them, and because I've done so much research on this, because I had a desire to understand my own kids and how their brains worked and how my brain worked and how to create, tools to help me be successful and get through life. All of that goes into me understanding people, and when I hear somebody saying like, I really have a hard time reading because my mind wanders off. I'm like, hey, have you ever thought about maybe you might have ADHD and maybe try audiobooks, or, hey, have you thought about that? If you judge a fish by its ability to climb a tree, it'll live its whole life thinking it's stupid. And if grades were what I was looking at as a kid, or I was a teen mom, you would never think I was going anywhere. But that is not true, and you have to measure every single person by their own set of filter, their own filter. Every single person can be successful. You just have to find the right box.
Well, it's
Maybe
like the
you have to create your own
capabilities,
box.
right? Yeah.
Yes.
We had a speaker, and I cannot remember his name. Well, Gino Bafari, who's our CEO.
Love Gino.
Yeah, he has that same. I'm sure you can relate a lot with him. But we had a speaker who was a drummer, and he could not keep attention in class, and his teachers thought that he just wasn't going to amount to anything, right? But there was one thing, because he always was hitting, always with his pencils, always making
That was
noise,
me.
and he became one of the most, an amazing drummer, right? Because this teacher saw in him, hey, why don't you try drums? I think you'd be good at it. And
I had to.
sure enough, he perfected the drums and now is a phenomenal motivational speaker, and talks about that. So I love every child, every individual is very special and unique and very in their own way. And you just have to be able to tap into that and help them get better. So beautiful. And Susie, I'm going to end with you as we wrap up.
Mhm.
For me, I think it's, we all experience struggles, whether it's in our personal or professional life, and you have to believe that you're going to come out on the other side. So for me, it's a simple saying, this too shall pass. This was something that was said to me during a really challenging and meaningful time, and it's always stuck with me. It was the right phrase at the right time, because I think sometimes you're in the moment and you're thinking like, oh my gosh, how am I gonna, the world is falling apart, right? But if you keep telling yourself this too shall pass, you come out of it on the other side, and you have to believe in that. And look at it for both, not only just in a negative time that you might be going through, but a positive time too, right? I think, Jessica, you said like life's short. So you've got to kind of always treasure everything in the moments that you're in, and know that the time's going to pass, and it's passing before us every single day. So that was just a phrase that's always stuck for me. And it's in everything I say, and I find myself saying it a lot too. And a book I'm currently reading is actually a book, Mel Robbins' book, and it's the Let Them Theory. And for me, it's really helping me. I just started reading, so I'm really early into it, but I follow Mel Robbins, and I'm always just so intrigued with her. But again, it's just helping you prioritize what truly matters in life. So
And I think that's become one of her biggest or most popular books, because I've heard it from
I
so
do
many
too.
people
Mhm.
that people just love that Let Them book. So thank you for recommending them. And this too will pass. That my
Yes.
dad always used to say that. Oh,
Mhm.
mijita, eso va a pasar. Dale tiempo. means
Me
time,
encanta.
it will pass, right? It was always, it'll pass. Don't worry about it. Things will be better tomorrow. So, anyway, I want to thank all of you for being my guests today and for sharing your experiences, your wisdom, and all your leadership little nuggets with us. To our audience, I really do appreciate whether you're a seasoned leader, an inspiring entrepreneur. Definitely reach out to Jessica. What her whole concept is about with Home Team is something that aspires you. Make sure you connect with us, or even if you're in real estate, right, and want to connect with us, looking into building a stronger partnership. I hope that today's conversation really has given you the valuable insights on the power of collaboration. If you loved this episode, please be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel and podcast, which, by the way, this episode becomes a podcast within the next 2 weeks. So you'll be able to download it for those that are audible, right? Jessica, and need that audible. I'm that same way. I like to hear, I don't like to read, but I prefer that so that you can actually download the podcast, and you can also subscribe to our YouTube channel as well. Let's continue the conversation on Women Who Lead Social. And don't forget, you can also listen to our podcast anywhere that you have or any platform that you're involved with. All right. So I hope that you're going to tune in April. Our next Women Who Lead is going to be Elevating Leaders, our next series of women who have elevated to brand new positions or that role. They've been in business a long time, but they're brand new to the role. And that's going to be on April 9th. So I hope you'll be able to join us then. And as always, until next time, always keep leading, keep collaborating, and remember, success is best when shared. I'm Teresa Palacios Smith, and this has been Women Who Lead. See you all next time.